Hello there, and welcome to episode 4 of the Not So Casual Gamer podcast. My name is Sam Christensen, and Lewis, how are you today?
I am okay, but of course we need to discuss something.
Disclaimer at top of the episode here. We recorded an episode on Sunday. Today is Thursday. If you follow us on the socials, you'll know that we posted that we were missing an episode. And
for all our great fans out there.
For all the that were chomping at the bit for that new episode on Wednesday. They were so disappointed. No, anyway. We ran into some technical issues on a laptop side, and a lot of audio was lost to the wind, never to be found again, and that's okay. It had to happen some point.
It was my fault, sorry.
That's all right. It had to happen at some point. So there you go. We'll call that the teething problems, as it were. So we are currently recording in a temporary setup. The microphones remain the same, but the room is different. So you might find it a little bit roomier, as it were. But you know, we should settle into your ears, no bother.
Yes. Hopefully that's the least of all of our problems here. Exactly. It's just really annoying because we're quite proud of that last episode, and
it was a good episode.
I think we
take our word for it.
We covered so much, and I think actually it continued to show, by the way, that we're not just Sony ponies, and anybody that's listening that thought that, it's gone now.
Well, we can. I've got some potential things in today's episode that that might also show that we're not Sony ponies. I think we've. Anyway, we are calling this episode, we actually slightly changed the name just before recording there. We sort of thinking we're going to call this one our Hot Takes and Forgotten Classics. We sort of posed this to each other as sort of the games we maybe find overrated, some of the games we find underrated that we'd like to recommend that may have been missed. But yeah, let's call that, let's change it up. We'll call it our Hot Takes. On both sides, I think that you could argue they may be hot takes, so that's good. Positive and negative.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could probably say that, overrated, underrated is what you could label some of these, because some of mine, it's forgotten classics, maybe ones that people will go, oh yeah, oh my god, remember that one? Yeah. But also big games that maybe over time have come to be sort of in negative or positive lights, and actually, it's kind of zeitgeisty games that we're kind of going to be tearing down our personal views of, well, what do we think versus the masses?
Yes. Oh, and I must also say, this was not the topic originally planned because we were toying with the idea of recording the same topic again, but one of our sort of favourite parts about doing the podcast here is that it is a conversation between us. It is a conversation in real time. There's elements of planning, but at the end of the day, we're really kind of spinning off each other, and we felt that it was going to become a little bit too scripted. We'd hit the same notes and be, laugh at the same jokes and try and make that sound like legit. So we've decided to scrap it. It may come back in the future, but it may just become a lost episode to the wind. Maybe one day I'll just release my half of the audio and just
oh jeez, I mean,
just occasionally me stopping and going.
I like to think something will happen in the future relating to that lost. I couldn't remember the greatest episode in the world. Yeah,
this is just a tribute. Yeah.
This is just a free hit, so please bear with us.
Bear with it. Well, we hope you enjoy the conversation. I'm actually really looking forward to it. I've got some good games that we're going to talk about here that could probably take up full episodes in their own right.
Totally.
So we need to make sure we keep it quite short. But let's
just gonna have fun with
let's just jump. Yeah. Let's just jump straight into it today. We will usually sort of start the episode with the games we're playing, but we're actually kind of in the middle of some things just now. We want to give things a bit more time, and we'll talk about them in the next episode. So
we'll get
we're pretty
to
much
that.
Just gonna. Yeah. Who cares? You don't want to know what we're playing, or maybe you do. So. Right, again, free hit. We're running by the seat of our pants, as it were, and we are just going to get started off. Do you want to start off negative? Do you want to start off positive? Do you want to go underrated or overrated or forgotten classic or hot take?
We could cross-pollinate one, then one, then one, then one.
I've got a little bit of that. I think I've got some that I can kind of talk about together that, we'll come to that as we go. But, yeah.
We could do like, I can't believe we actually didn't plan this before.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
One overrated for you, then one for me, then one underrated for you, one for me.
Let's see how that goes. Yeah. I might have some that I want to bring up in my in part of the conversation. One, maybe from the same game series of which I find overrated, and then there's games in that series that I find underrated, and kind of compare and contrast. There may be some crossover. We'll play it by ear, and that's all a conversation is. You don't plan a conversation. Oh, hi. Well, I'm going to just get started on an overrated game. This was a little bit of not-so-casual gamer history here. This was a test episode that we made that, again, will not see the light of day.
One of you has heard it.
Oh, yes.
One special soul, yes.
One special soul. We're going to just jump into a game that I find quite overrated. Just let's start off negative, why not? And that is actually quite relevant just now, so we can kind of talk about that from that light. That is Days Gone.
Ooh. One of my hot takes also. I am in agreement.
Okay, in agreement. Right, okay, so Days Gone's an interesting one. There's a part of me that's like, can I put it on the list? Really? I suppose I can.
Yes.
We've tried it a number of times. There was some games that I almost put on the list and then took off because I felt like I haven't given them a fair enough shake, or
okay, but I would say that. Well, maybe I put more hours into it, maybe than you. I'm not sure, but I did about 10 hours.
I was probably just a bit shy of that, about 8.
Yeah, 5 to 10 hours, and I don't know. I mean, I feel like when it's a big open world, 50-hour game, if you wanted it to be something like that, I'm not really sure. Mm-hmm. And then I feel like you can be okay with saying, well, after 10 hours, that's a pretty good go at it, because some games are less than 10 hours. So, your time isn't, infinite, and it's valuable, so...
Yeah, sure. So, well, let's say that then. So, Days Gone. This was one that I wasn't necessarily like looking forward to in the same sense as maybe some other PlayStation exclusives, but it had an element of expectation because it falls under that kind of same umbrella where we'll sort of show our Sony poniness, as it were. But it was an odd one. My story with that is that I didn't play it at launch. And I ended up borrowing it off of a mutual friend of ours and playing it, being plagued with bugs and game crashes. Even after initial patches, it just didn't really run on my base PS4 all that well. And so I just put it to the side and said, right, it didn't grab me as a story game off the bat, but there's a gameplay mechanic in the hordes that I was wanting to see through. So I'll just wait till the PS5 version. They're going to come out with a PS5 version.
Yeah.
We'll fast forward, and they come out with the 4K 60 FPS patch. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, right, that's my time. Let's do it. I play this. I think I got up to like, if for anyone who's played the game, I got up to like Copeland's camp that first time through. So it wasn't far in, but it was only because really every single time I went to play it, it would crash on me pretty much 10 minutes in every time. So that was fair. In this case, I couldn't even tell you where I got to story-wise because I couldn't remember a single thing about it.
Burn.
I didn't see... I don't know. This is really difficult to say because...
It's a tricky one to talk about. I mean...
There's obviously its fans, and...
It really does, by the way.
It really does, as we've found out recently. And this is one of those things, like... I didn't get to the horde mechanic. I will be, outright. So I would have been less than you because I think you did. Was that right?
I think the very beginnings of it, and I will say that I sort of feel a bit bad, to be honest, that we maybe didn't stick in a bit more, because apparently between when the horde stuff gets cooking and apparently the story overall is quite engaging despite the drawbacks we had. I mean, for me, that talking about the story side of it, that kind of wouldn't, I don't think, have been enough. I can't see, because even just down to the way that the story beats unfolded, we have a big problem with the structure of the game. It's just a really strange laid out game, and it's kind of off-putting the way that it gives you missions and how you have to kind of go between them and stuff like that. It's kind of just annoying.
Kind of showing you all those different branching paths, like, you know, this is a storyline with this character, but it also gives you like 4% progression on this guy's storyline. I felt like it was kind of trying to overcomplicate things for its own good. I would have almost preferred almost like a Horizon approach, where it was a Golden Path storyline and then some side missions, and just call them side missions, or you know, maybe even Ghost of Tsushima, that was like, that had, it was a side mission, absolutely, but it was like that character's, I don't know, it was just laid out better.
It was nicely done in Ghost of Tsushima, where it made the sort of side stories feel meaningful. If you you know, if you were really invested in putting loads of hours in that game, then you know, they were good stories to follow. But it felt as if Days Gone tried too hard to shake up the formula when it didn't need to. Yeah, and it was just a bit messy, and also one of the other big issues I had was just like the voice acting is so bizarre. Now, it's not that it was like classically, traditionally trash like so many games are, unfortunately, and that's one of my big beefs, that, you know, talking points in games that I'd like to get into more in a future episode. But
yeah, we will. It's
more that it was just like a sideways step into Bizarro land, and I just couldn't take it seriously. And
it was hard to take seriously. I think because the guy that voiced Deacon St. John, that was Sam Witwer, and he, I really, really like him. He voices Darth Maul in the...
Did not know this.
Like the Clone Wars cartoons and Rebels and stuff, and he's like a massive Star Wars buff. Like he's so passionate about all that, and he's really interesting to listen to and hear. So he's a talented guy. It's not that, you know, he knows what he's doing.
Poor directive from the studio then.
I think it must have been. I think it was just this strange scripting, maybe even like just in the beginning, for sure. I mean, it has been compared and is going to continue to be compared to the likes of The Last of Us. It's a Sony first person, Sony first party, third person action game. Of course, Days Gone is open world and Last of Us is more linear, or is linear. But I mean, take the intro from The Last of Us and the intro from Days Gone. I mean,
yeah, it's hard.
It's impossible to compare, because I mean, at the end of the day, the intro to Days Gone, I'm talking about literally that first cutscene of that sort of pre-outbreak world, you know, to then obviously it flashes forward. You can draw the parallels. Last of Us, it's just as it hits, and then it flashes forward, how, you know, 25 years I think it is.
Do you know what?
And then it's the same thing. You know, no, it's all good.
Yeah. Do you know what? The last thing that I actually kind of can feel like I'll say on it is I just feel in general it was just a bit clunky, which I feel people are kind of brushing aside. It doesn't seem like it gets talked about. I don't think it played particularly well. I don't think there was anything special about it.
There was probably a stylistic choice to that. They'll claim the kind of early guns that you pick up that, you know, they're so
I don't know,
worn and rusted and stuff, so it's not meant to feel good.
Maybe as a whole the game opens up and becomes really engaging, but it had a terrible first impression, and
it needs to make that first impression, though. It's a new IP. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like it needs to make that first impression. But we'll one more. I suppose it is relevant just now with our, you know, with this conversation. You know, they've said that they're not doing a Days Gone 2, and, you know, I'm in the back going, fine, give them a new IP. I'd like to see what they do. Yeah. And then there's the people up in arms about the sequel. But, you know, I have to say, that director or whoever it was that came out and said, if you want a sequel to a game, buy it full price, like calling everyone out.
That was weird.
The game.
Yeah, that was weird.
I really, really disagree with that, because I'm sorry. What do you remember? What was sent out to the reviewers? A broken build.
Yeah,
the game was broken on launch. It wasn't Cyberpunk levels of broken, but it wasn't running smoothly. I mean, I played it about 4 months after launch, and it couldn't even run on my PlayStation. So that, you know, that is the first impressions that we are getting. So check yourself before you go.
I know, and then
out stuff like that.
And when you consider that down the line, when something like this is fixed, when you consider that something like Days Gone scarcely has an original bone in its body. It's like, well, you know, what are you know, this isn't like the best thing since sliced bread. It's not even,
because even the horde mechanic at the end of the day, of course it has its own, you know, variation, but at the end of the day, it's maybe again, I've not played it, I've only watched gameplay of it, but at the end of the day, it is, you know, there's been zombie games with hordes of zombies coming at you, that sort of intense feeling of, you know, your Dead Risings, your Left 4 Dead and all that. You know, I know they're different games, I do understand that, but a horde of zombies coming at you isn't new to video games. They might have done it in a slightly different way, of course, but, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that slightly different being big increase in quantity, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, whatever. I mean, I just find it odd to finalise on this game, because actually we've probably ended up spending more. It's one of these ones that takes time because it's hard to talk about, but I find it surprising how many fans there is of it. Like, you know, what is it about Days Gone that makes you be so passionately a fan about it when there's just more interesting original things out there? Like,
write in and let us know.
I mean,
DM us on Instagram. I'd like to know, because, you know, I know I've spoken to some people that are like, yeah, it was good.
I just can't figure it out.
But not like the ultra passionate fans of it. I've not really found anyone that's passionate. People that are going, yeah, it's good. I see what you mean when you say what you say, but that maybe I brought it up to in the past. So let's swiftly move on from Days Gone. Let's go a bit more positive. Let's go for something a little bit more of a forgotten classic from yourself, Lewis. What would you like to bring up?
Okay, let's have a look. See here. Oh my goodness, which one to talk about? I actually think I'm going to go with Crackdown as my first one.
Okay.
Which I know you haven't played,
Nope.
and you're actually quite unfamiliar. But I suppose that's somewhat to my point. I mean, it is
absolutely. The only thing I've really got about Crackdown is the footage from like Crackdown 3, because that's been more recent, which I know wasn't as well received.
So I think it's a great shame that they, you know, killed that series with 2 and 3. 2 was just kind of like, at the time, a fart in the wind. You know, it was not necessarily bad like 3 is, but kind of just like really forgettable and a lot of sideways steps and design choice. But the first one was so original at the time. Yes, it sort of took a kind of cel-shaded GTA-ish vibe, but not really, because all in so much as, you know, it was open world. Well, actually, you're kind of a vigilante almost type, but the mechanics of, you know, the sort of massive super jumping and like you're a sort of super agent type thing, and it was just really and the explosion kind of physics and animation and craziness that all you could do. I just loved it, and I thought, you know, it didn't get quite as much attention as I think it deserves. It's just kind of one of those ones that there's quite a few of these, to be honest, where, you know, that has a clutch of, it's like a cult classic, basically.
Cult classic.
And there will be sequels, but then it kind of just fades away. And I just think this was a perfect example. And it's kind of sad, because it's one where if the further games in the series had come out and been really well received and kind of sold well, you know, it's like if we were eventually to own future Xboxes or whatever, it would be one that I'd be really excited to play, because I loved that gameplay loop of it. I thought it was, you know, like your recent examples of Control, or just that kind of almost kinetic kind of feel to a game. I just thought it
unique as well. Yeah,
totally. So Crackdown for me was maybe the Control of 2007. Every so often a game like that comes along for me where the feel of it,
just can't put it down.
Yeah, it's like, you know, the usual things that I'm mostly into for games didn't really come into it there. You know, it wasn't like a standout, drop dead, you know, good looking game. You know, the story was barely there. It was just a service you get into each gameplay point, and yeah, I just think it's a bit of a shame what happened to Crackdown.
Well, the third one, it was
Terry Crews.
Terry Crews in the game, but it was also like delayed.
Oh, it was ridiculous.
Repeatedly.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just going to fizzle out with that kind of thing. It's not, the hype would probably have been beneficial for it to have launched at maybe a sooner state.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah. There's not too much to say on Crackdown. If you know, basically, and maybe I would label that as one of gaming's greatest shames rather than,
I wonder if it's on Game Pass. I wouldn't know.
Probably. It's that way where I'd be interested to go back and try and play it again, actually, just to see how dated it maybe feels. But because it was cel shaded, so who knows? Maybe it holds up quite well. I don't know.
Well, yeah. Well, could that bring me to a perfect segue into my next one? Who knows? When you say cel shaded, I'll go underrated first.
Okay.
But this actually this is so obvious, for people that know me. But this ties into a little bit of overrated as well. And the underrated game is Borderlands the Pre-Sequel.
Oh my goodness.
Okay,
it's just.
But
yeah, okay.
There is a caveat to that, because I'm pairing that with one of my overrated games, which is Borderlands 3.
Is it though?
So
overrated, you think? Because I thought the reaction to 3 was sort of quite lukewarm. Was it not?
Yeah, but I still think it's overrated.
So you just full on think it's trash?
Maybe not. It's difficult. I mean, overrated. I mean, what did it get? I've got my big computer here, so I'm going to look up what the Metacritic score was for Borderlands 3.
Do you know? I actually,
while we talk about this, I want to actually, because maybe I'm wrong here.
Well, I actually was almost feeling very brazen and I swithered about putting Borderlands in my overrated, but actually,
what just Borderlands in general?
Yeah, but then I thought about it. I was it's kind of not fair because obviously people are into looter shooters and that's fine.
Yeah,
and it's obviously just not my cup of tea. And I was like, that kind of doesn't qualify for me to put it in. That's not quite the right criteria because obviously it does have its fans.
So maybe I'm not alone in this. I just thought I was. 78 Metascore for Borderlands 3.
Yes.
And a 5.8 user score.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I was sure that the sort of the public consensus was that it was a big disappointment, basically.
Well, yeah, fair enough. So maybe I can't put them together, but I'll still put Pre-Sequel as an underrated game. I'll
in years to come, you're going to get people saying that 3 is underrated. There'll be a video, 20 minutes, will be I think Borderlands 3 is underrated, and here's why.
Yeah, it's story while cringy, and it's the story of it. That was the disappointing.
Here's all the small details you missed, Sam.
Yeah, just fully a 20-minute video essay directed right at me.
Yeah. God damn.
The story was awful. The story was absolute trash. So I will put in the trash camp. But the gameplay was great. The gameplay was probably the most refined.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the most refined. You know what I mean? It was made for PS4.
Definitely still more of the same
patches.
Fundamentally, though, right?
More of the same fundamentally, but there was a lot of quality of life changes that I really liked with it. For example, you could play with anyone of any level, and the enemies that you're fighting are going to be leveled to your character level. And say you were playing with someone who was a lower level, they would the difficulty would match your own gameplay, regardless of who you were playing with. And the loot that you would get would be leveled properly to you, and the other person would get another set of loot. So that would be leveled to them. So it was good. But just the story really...
Now, I think... I could be totally wrong here, but now this is because I still don't think the gaming community, or the vocal gaming community at large, to this point, is really still all that bothered about story and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we kind of talk about this a lot, where I feel like we kind of haven't got to a point where a lot of people consider the various elements of games over gameplay being king. And yes, obviously, that is still the case.
Gameplay is important.
But to try and larkenly tie this back around to the Borderlands thing, I think it's true to say, is it not, that the reaction to Borderlands 3 is based on the fact that gameplay-wise, it's not doing much new. Do you not think that people who want new Borderlands, they're wanting it to evolve, are they not? Because it's kind of
I don't know about that.
As someone that is kind of an outsider and viewing on it, like I've always kind of been waiting for that. See, when 2 came out, and then they did like the pre-sequel, and then when we started to see 3, and it's like, oh, okay, that's literally going to be more of the same again. I was kind of surprised. I thought that was a series that was going to like maybe somewhat quite heavily evolve in terms of trying new things and kind of maybe, I mean, yeah, I don't know, obviously the cell shaded thing, you know, how much more different / better can you go, but I don't know, I feel like story is secondary in most people's opinion on the Borderlands games.
I would potentially disagree with that, only because to me it
seems very easy to ignore it. I find it quite hard to pay attention. When I've tried Borderlands, I kind of find it hard to pay attention to following the story.
But Borderlands fans are different than that. I think that's the thing. Like they like Borderlands for its, and I'm going to use this now in quote unquote, for its humor, because it's not funny anymore. Do you know what I mean? We've all grown out of that. You know, that was fine in 2012 when we were, 16 years old. That was funny. But, there is such a sort of hardcore fan base to those characters that are represented in Borderlands 3 that they've been playing as or with in 2 or 1, 2 in the pre-sequel. So I would actually say on the whole, I think a general gamer probably wouldn't be paying attention to the story, or yourself that has no real interest in the story. But I think if you have ever really engaged with the story in Borderlands and the lore around it, which there is actually quite a decent bit of lore to it. It's quite simple, at its core, but I think that's where it was very disappointing. It killed off characters in 3 pointlessly with no payoff, and I think that was kind of one of the things. It was also introduced. Well, actually, I will defend the story. I mean, Handsome Jack is one of the a fan favorite villain. If you look at any list of greatest video game villains, Handsome Jack's going to be there. So I think there is a character element to Borderlands that people really love. Maybe not a plot element in the same way, but I think it can be quite character driven, whether that's just through comedy or through anything like that. So the pre-sequel, going back to the underrated element, we just started talking about Borderlands 3. The pre-sequel was definitely underrated. It was, if we could kind of take the same approach that the story wasn't anything special, that's fine. We can maybe put that to the side a little bit for this. But I felt that it was actually doing something just different enough with the moon physics, because it was set on the moon of Pandora. Yeah. So it had like a sort of verticality to it that Borderlands 1 and 2 definitely didn't. And of all of them, to be honest, my most enjoyable Vault Hunter to play as with their skills and powers was in the pre-sequel. Funnily enough, it was the playable Claptrap that you were able to play as. I loved playing as him and using all his different abilities and stuff. So he's actually been the most engaged. I've always said to Kerry when we're talking about this, the ideal Borderlands game would be like the story and the world, like the locations of 2, but with Claptrap as a playable character, because Claptrap can be really annoying as a character, but his powers were really fun it was a fun gameplay mechanic. And for those who maybe don't know, it was, anytime you would, for any other character, anytime you would like press their action skill, whatever it's called, it'd be the same thing every time. You could level it up and change it through the skill tree. Yeah. But Claptrap's was like a random one. I mean, there was obviously a set amount, but it was a random one every time, which doesn't sound great on paper if you wanted to do something, but there was always this element of surprise. And there was ones where you ended up like shooting tons of grenades out, or like bouncing around in this like rubber ducky, and you were like bouncing everywhere. It was stupid, but it was fun. It was unique. More so than 3 probably was in.
Should have saved all those mechanics for 3.
Well, that's it, exactly. But 3 was just too late. That was the thing.
Yeah.
We would have been all over 3 if it came out in 2015, 2016. But it was, 2019? It was just way too
It does seem strange that it took them that long to come out with... Because
Well, they did Battleborn, which they were trying to compete with, obviously, Overwatch came out at the same time. They were trying to do that hero shooter thing.
Talking about farts in the wind.
Totally. Oh, talking of. I can't believe that game.
The
I cannot believe that game.
God. Yeah, well, maybe... I'm guessing, if there's any similar Borderlands fans such as yourself listening, then it probably resonates quite a lot with what you've just said there.
I'm hoping so.
Maybe the one that on all the forums, they're sort of saying, well, pre-sequel, everybody knows that's the real G, you know what I'm saying?
That's the real sequel to... Well, that's the real pre-sequel to 2. I don't know. Yeah, that's Borderlands. I love Borderlands. It was in my... Borderlands 2 is in my top 10. But I definitely think I've grown out of Borderlands, but there's still that special place, for,
of course.
2.
It's always going to happen. I mean...
Always going to happen.
You could say that for anything, my second place game ever is Tony Hawk's Underground, and it's not like you could say that I've outgrown that in a lot of ways. I'm not going to... I don't know.
Looks like that thing's held together by duct tape.
Let's go skate.
We have to bring that. You can't not bring that up every time that game's brought up. So.
Oh God, this episode's already a train wreck compared to the last one. Jesus, it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's not. I think we're overthinking. Right, let's move on.
Right. So will I now do overrated?
Sure, let's do it.
Because I haven't done one yet. Oh my God, this could actually be like a 3-hour episode, by the way, because my list is quite big. And
we'll maybe split this into. We'll maybe do a part 2 down the line. We'll potentially put a little pin in it.
Maybe we'll just. It'll be an ongoing series every time we think of more.
Yeah, we'll whenever we lose an episode to the wind, we'll bring out the overrated, underrated topic.
Oh, I've accidentally lost my audio again. We'll need to do that again.
We'll need to do the other one so we can talk about it. Just this really obscure way to get to talk about these games. We could just plan this as the episode, but no, it has to be when we lose an episode.
God. Right. Let me just try and... Yes, let me just come up with one here. Oh, and you're going to agree with this one again.
Okay.
And it's more than one game, kinda, again. The last 3 Assassin's Creeds.
Yes, that's me applauding in the background there. Yes.
Now, this is kind of quite similar to the Days Gone situation in terms of... But actually kind of taken up a few notches because it really has its fans. There are so many people out there that think these games are, God's gift to gamers,
and the definitive versions of Assassin's Creed,
and we are
there's ever been
vehemently against that viewpoint.
That
they're actually we do have our allies, by the way. We're few and far between, but I've seen online that voices that speak very much to how we feel about the Assassin's Creed series are starting to appear. They're aligning with us, whereas it felt like. We
were by ourselves.
After Odyssey and... sorry, not Odyssey. Origins. The reaction to that game was so kind of oh, yeah, breath of fresh air. Absolutely love this. It's such a great game. And we were kind of just sitting there the soul of the franchise is gone. This is not Assassin's Creed anymore.
No.
What we liked it for is gone. And now it just is a... generic Western bloated RPG thing, action RPG, I guess. I don't think it should be under the Assassin's Creed name anymore, just with the way that it is.
No, it's not. No. To be honest, if it called itself anything else, there's probably I know it's like a total mentality thing, but I mean it's a sequel in a series. I understand that they needed to rework it in some sense. That they gave everyone annual gaming fatigue with their games. I understand that, but I don't know. I think it just took the essence of especially Odyssey I played Origins. I played it, from start to finish, story-wise. That's one big problem I've got with those games is the pacing. I don't like.
It was terrible. It was terrible.
When we notice, I mean, the fact of the matter is you can look at it anyway, but at the end of the day, they made a game with level caps on stories, which is fine. That's typical in an RPG, where you need to hit a certain level before you can do this mission or the next story mission, and gave you side missions to grind and level up. However, the gap between story missions and Origins was atrocious. But it's because they introduced a microtransaction of a permanent XP boost for £10.
Sickening.
And it's sickening. That's just disgusting, first and foremost. Like, I don't like using that word because, like, I'm in retail, and when customers come in being like, this is disgusting, this service, and I'm like, shut up. No, it's not. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I'd have to look back at how long. I could probably check it on the PS4 at some point, but I must have been close to, like, 40 hours of Origins on just the story.
I think I maybe played 20. I can't even remember.
And that was me really trying to rush through it as much as possible, but I just refused to give them any more money because it was too much. So, and also the story was like pretty nothing. There was an excitement around it because it was different. I enjoyed the first 10 hours of Origins before I kind of really realised what it was.
Same.
Do you know what I mean?
No, I actually did have a good first impression in terms of, this is something different, and it looks incredible for a massive open world game, and you're thinking, wow, there's a lot of detail here, something to this. But then when you start to realise just how bloated and exploitative it is.
Yes, I would say so. The side missions, for example, are just like it's just rehashed stuff and loses luster very, very quickly.
Oh, it's so boring.
And the sort of, the voice acting in the campaign was great, but then maybe not great, it wasn't memorable, but it was serviceable. And then you
for game standards, yes.
For game standards, especially kind of open world games. And then you get to those side missions, and I was like, I can't listen to this. Like, this is bad.
Just so bad, yeah.
And so fast forward a bit to Odyssey, and I was wanting to play it. I was hoping that the kinks had been worked out, as it were, and the XP booster was still there in the store. So I was like, like I'm kind of that was like the first thing I checked.
It really draws you in with the beautiful world, though. It's really at the time it was like, wow, look at that shit.
For sure. And I played it, and I think I remember talking to you about this. I played the first 10 hours, and it was really just like story mission after story mission after story mission. I'm going, yeah, they've got this. And then you hit like level 12 in the story, and then it's like next story mission level 18 or something. And I was like, no, they've not just got me to play like 10 hours of this, and now they're putting the long, because I mean, you don't level up quick in those games. You do not level up quick. So I was like, no, they've done it. They've just done it again, and it was even less Assassin's Creed-ish to me. Even Origins felt a bit like you were an assassin.
Totally.
You were a Spartan. There was big, massive Spartan battles on beaches. They were a mess, by the way. If you played them, I'm sorry, they were the most confusing looking visually. Like,
I can imagine this being a very Ubisofty, just hot mess. Yeah,
it was. It just was. Now, at the end of the day, it has its fans. But when you look and tell me that just as like a story to complete it's something like 80 hours or something, I was like, nope. And also, it came out 2 weeks before Red Dead 2.
Yeah.
And I was like, nope, I'm not playing this anymore. Traded it in. I usually just I never really worry too much about trading in games, but I was like, I'm trading this in, and bought Red Dead Redemption 2 and had a much better time.
Do you know, and it's so strange to me because anyone with real eyes, okay, if you compare those two, like, it shocks me that the gap in perception is not so much wider, because it surely is. Like, when you compare those two games, it's like one is a work of art, and one is a generic sort of cash grab, over bloated hot mess, which on a technical level they don't even work that well still. Valhalla had all the same issues, which Valhalla seems just to be more of the same again, which is why we're just like, nah, not even going there.
I've not even touched it.
It's not even been a thought in our minds, because
not been tempted by it. No,
it's so disappointing, because the mystique of Assassin's Creed is what got us in the first place. We really enjoyed the kind of, maybe nuanced isn't the right word, but just the little kind of nice things that it did in terms of, it's kind of parkour stuff was engaging for us, and the hidden blade, they even took that out.
I think one of the DLCs for Odyssey was you discovering the hidden blade, and I believe
DLC. Wow, okay, that's
for
great.
sure. Yeah, DLC
Thanks.
that you're playing after 110 hours of Spartan kicking people off of cliffs. Like, that's not Assassin's Creed. I'm sorry, it's not.
And I think it lended itself to when they started to get a bit frustrating towards the end of the traditional games. Because they were starting to get Ubisoft were starting to take the piss with their open world games being really bloated, and that was a big, obviously, problem for me, and they were the real catalysts for kind of turning me off to it. But I still put up with it at the time, because I still just loved getting in amongst all that Assassin's Creed type vibe, and I don't know. I think it lended itself more to just being a bit of that tighter experience as well. Because
tighter experience, yep.
It's just too much. I honestly, I don't know how so many people have the patience and think that they're getting some fantastical, great, mind-blowing gaming experience out of these games, because it has to be all 17-year-olds with too much time on their hands. Like,
it has to be.
We were there. I get it.
And my brother. Shout out to Ben. He loved it.
Oh, sorry, Ben.
That's all right. I'll apologize.
Anyway,
I'll say it's all right. I've told him my thoughts.
I'm sure you have, yeah. But we're quite passionate about the Assassin's Creed thing.
Yeah, for sure. It kind of leads me on to I'll go. We'll bring this round to a slightly more positive view, because I had that on my overrated games list, but it paired quite nicely with an underrated game from the same series, which is potentially a hot take for many. Now, just because I'm saying it's underrated does not mean I'm saying it's perfect. But I'm going to shout out Assassin's Creed Unity just now, which is interesting, because
that's definitely an interesting one.
That's a universally, Now,
if you remember, I hated that one when it first came out.
You did?
I ran into quite a few technical problems. They had sort of changed up the combat and added in sort of stealth mechanics, and I just couldn't get to grips with it at the time. I felt it was really clunky. But so I kind of actually got rid of the game immediately.
Yeah, I remember that.
I remember very specifically.
That was kind of just at the time that we started like playing music together in university and stuff. So that was like right.
We had kind of discovered that we both were big fans of the series, and we were like, right, here we go, first big AAA kind of release that we can relate over. And
the next gen version of Assassin's Creed.
PS4,
because obviously Black Flag came out on PS4, but it was the same game as the PS3 one, and this was like the new Assassin's Creed.
Yes.
And so on the flip side, I didn't experience much in the way of game-breaking technical issues. I probably was running through frame drops like crazy, and my eyes were I was just a stupid, ignorant gamer that I didn't even really notice at the time. I would probably go back and notice straight away now. But I really enjoyed it. I liked everything's so simple as the parkour mechanics, like the drop, like the run down, like parkour down a building. Because it was always great to climb up a building, but then trying to get down from a building in Assassin's Creed was always a little bit touch and go, whether you're going to jump to your death or not, or it would like halt you in your tracks. I felt like it flowed much better. But kind of a sort of a point that I wanted to bring up, comparing Unity to Odyssey. Now, of course, they're two very different games. There's a massive scope to Odyssey. There's a tighter scope to Unity, just being set in one city. But you compare the streets of Paris, and something they were really interested in, that they were trying to do was massive crowd mechanics. That was the whole thing, the French Revolution, and the massive crowds outside the Notre Dame, and then you compare that to running through Athens in Odyssey, and it feels like there's like about 4 people kicking about in the market. You know what I mean? Like it was, it was beautiful to look at. Of course it was, but in Odyssey, but it was empty. There was nothing there. But there felt like there was more personality. It was dirty and grimy. In Paris, and I'm still saying, like, I played it last year during lockdown. I picked it up again. I traded it in ages ago, but I picked it up for like £5 or something on the sale just to see. Ended up playing like another sort of the first 10 hours again, and I was like, "Yep, that's me. I'm happy with that." But I ended up playing a good chunk of it again, and it still looks good. Like it still looks good to this day. The lighting in it was impressive.
Yeah, it was. Paris. Because that was kind of one of the big things with the old AC games. It was like the cities were like characters in themselves.
They were characters.
They were often the MVPs of the games because they always kind of nailed that kind of alive, historical, urban feel. And
whereas these new ones obviously incorporate many cities. You go, it's all of Greece, it's all of Egypt.
God.
To obviously not, it's not, obviously it can't be.
Yeah.
It's incorporating much more to the point where these locations don't feel unique next to each other. Of course, there's actual landmarks, and there's awesome things that those new games do. They've got those virtual museums where it's just like you can walk around and it gives you all these different, and it was like free DLC that you can kind of have an interactive museum. It was great. That's a great idea. I kind of wish they would do that with some of the, they were able to do that with some of the older ones. But you compare that to the level of detail in the likes of even, for how much more rudimentary it is, you can tell when you're in Florence versus Venice in AC2. Those were smaller locations. Of course, that's an example of an AC game that jumped location to location. But then Brotherhood was just in Rome, so it was this, settled in this one place. I think the outlier to that rule for me was probably Black Flag. I didn't mind the changing up of locations because there was this interesting ship mechanic.
Yeah, that was totally different. They mixed that right up, and it was like,
exactly.
Oh wow, they're actually taking a risk. It's a full-on pirate thing, and I think they nailed it as a pirate game. But they also balanced it so perfectly with it being
an Assassin's Creed game,
and it worked. And it's actually, I can't remember how much we've actually talked on the first few episodes about Assassin's Creed, but that is probably my personal favourite one is Black Flag. I acknowledge that 2 had the biggest sort of cultural impact. It was kind of the one from which all the future ones were judged, etc., etc. But in terms of like a full package of how they evolved it and the pirate thing being so good, Black Flag was my favourite.
Yeah, it's definitely. I suppose it's up there with mine for sure. I think it probably is my favourite one. I did go back and also play that, and it's tricky to go back to the old Assassin's Creeds now, even compared to Unity and Syndicate. I just liked. It all comes down to that like parkour down mechanic. I know that's like bringing it all back to like one thing, but
hard to go back to. Yeah,
I just I miss that when going to the old ones. The same kind of. The problems that I found were a little bit of a breath of fresh air. Breath of fresh air.
I love it.
When we got to Unity and Syndicate, I miss when I go back. I still prefer those old games. I look back, with fonder memories of those older games, more so than Unity and Syndicate. But yeah, and actually, to be honest, I'll put Syndicate on the list as well as an underrated game.
They sort of go together, I think.
I think that one was better than Unity overall.
As a game,
I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the characters that you were playing as, but Unity just hurt it too much. I feel like if that was the game that came out, as the next gen version of AC,
if they'd taken a break,
or whether it was taking a break or not, say it didn't take a break, but at the time Unity came out, Syndicate and the quality of that with the story and the characters, I think it would have been a different story. I don't think we would have seen this drastic change in AC if
that's a whole other discussion though, because
AC came out.
Well, obviously they decided to start releasing them every single year from 2 onwards, and I definitely think that was a mistake. I think
For sure.
it was the same.
As much as I enjoyed a lot of those games that did come out year after year, 3 wasn't as good and all that, but as much as I did enjoy those games, it was too much. It was too much.
Much like the European Super League fiasco that's been in the news recently. It was a capitalist power grab. They killed it. All they cared about was maximising profits every year. It's got to come out. Call of Duty, got to come out. Whereas if they actually cared about preserving the integrity of the franchise, making us wait for each next game, I think it would have been a better route to go, personally.
Let
for
those
Assassin's
games come
Creed.
out when they're ready. But at the same time, they took a year off before Valhalla. And that doesn't stand out as anything,
but then that's
of a higher quality.
I totally expected that though, because I think
me too.
Once they realised, we can take a year off, they'll be like building up more anticipation for it, but we can actually just go and release the same type of thing, not put much effort in, and they're still going to buy it because we have somehow this big new fan base that love this new style of game, and they'll just take it anyway.
They had to take a year off because no one had completed Odyssey yet, because it's 2 years long. So,
but I don't know why anyone would want to. I mean, if you're actually genuinely 100% in those games, then I don't know what you're doing. Like, what a waste of time.
Well, we're about 50 minutes in here. I think we definitely should split this into a future episode as well,
Jesus.
because I've got some. I'm looking at my list here. I've got some that would.
I know.
be their
I
own
have a lot of hot
episodes as well.
takes that I want to talk about here.
Well, we don't want to give every hot take just now, because then people will probably go, I hate them so much because they don't like this game I like. So let's let them enjoy us more before they decide to turn our podcast off forever.
Well, okay. Shall we do like one more of each?
Let's do one more. Let's do one more. Yeah.
All right. So
I'm gonna go. Let's end on a positive note. Let's do 2 underrated games
Okay.
each. Let's do that.
Okay. You see, I've got a really inflammatory one that I could say right now, but then we'll end up going for. No, I'm going to save that one.
Save it.
Okay, my one. Oh, I can't choose.
You'll be able to talk about it next time, Lewis. Don't worry. Just save your notes.
Right, I'm gonna just somewhat drop this small mic here. Anyway, GTA 4 actually. Underrated in the sense. Okay, I know it's not like regarded as some trash game,
Of course.
but I think after GTA 5 came out and how they sort of evolved what next gen GTA could be at that point in terms of the scope and the 3 characters and that, I think people retroactively then went back to 4 and were like, look at that game. It's just so basic. It's like, it looks all waxy and the driving's
Asian.
terrible and it's all great. Whereas actually, I think that was totally unfair, and I actually think it's been so long, but from what I can remember, I think I might have enjoyed playing through that story of 4 more than 5.
Okay.
And I think that Liberty City had so much gritty character. Obviously that was in a time period where gritty in games was the in thing.
Was synonymous, yes, with a game.
But we're talking about Rockstar here. They did it in a way like no one else would. When you're talking about building a gritty, New York, basically. Yeah. Nobody's going to do it better. And
no.
And something about the character of that game and how you can go and do all the funny little mini games with your brother Roman.
Was he your cousin?
Sorry, cousin. Yes.
I'll save my thoughts in a second because I can't contribute too much to this conversation. I'll explain why in a second, but.
Yeah, have you played it? I can't remember.
So no,
you've not played it because obviously that was again in the middle of your
my gaming
erstwhile time?
So I have played it, but I played it post GTA 5. So it's funny that you did bring that up, like, oh, retroactively looking back, going, oh, look at this, the driving's terrible. That's exactly what I said. I was like, oh no, the driving is terrible. Like, it is waxy. It doesn't look that good.
It was good at the time, though.
See, this is the thing. More context. If our episode was not lost to the ether, we'd have had context to the fact that one of my gaming regrets, that was the episode, it was about gaming regrets, was that I'd missed out on a lot of GTA because my mama and papa were like, no. It's, it'll rot your brain. You're going to do drugs and kill people.
Maybe you may have.
Who knows? I might have been a totally different person.
Actually, no. Let's not encourage video game violence here. We know that's not a thing.
It's not a thing. So that was a joke for the purposes of comedic value. So yeah, I don't have much more to say like myself about it. What I would love is for a future GTA 2 be in Liberty City or have some access to. I would love to see what Rockstar could do with New York now, and we'll just call it New York because that's what it is. But I'd love to see what they could do because they did a great job with LA and GTA 5. I loved GTA 5. I can't wait.
Same.
I'm looking forward to playing the PS5 version. They'll get another however much out of me. I've bought the PS3 version. I bought the PS4 version. I will buy the PS5 version. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we're such suckers. Yeah,
we're such suckers. Like, that's why they'll do it. But yeah.
No, like I do on the balance of things still think that 5 is a better game than 4, but I just kind of felt it was unfair. I kind of, when I started to see a lot of that chatter online, I was a bit like, wait a second now. We all said we all said we loved this at the time, and it was like the greatest thing since sliced bread. So what happened?
Because it's interesting. I think it's up there in like the top Metacritic reviewed.
Yeah, I think
it's like a 98 or something.
I think it reached 98 on one platform, yeah.
So the fact that is now considered potentially, in some, lens,
the worst game. GTA, potentially, in some people's eyes.
At like a 9.8 or 98, whatever, That's crazy.
Now,
I mean, that just shows the overall quality of like Rockstar games, though, that a 98 could,
It's a really interesting one because actually you probably could look at it in some ways that at the time it was maybe slightly overrated. Maybe,
That's interesting. Yep.
Because it's sort of swung the other way in a weird way. Because
crazy what
I think when a Rockstar game comes out, I think we're all just so kind of taken aback by how well they craft their characters and their sort of satire and just the great kind of straightforward balancing of an open world game, like adventure. It's kind of like they always nail it, and I think maybe whenever they do come out, it causes the mainstream media to gush more than perhaps is necessary. Because I've got quite nuanced thoughts on like Red Dead Redemption 2. I mean, I think it's a fantastic game, but I probably wouldn't align myself with certain people that might say that it's, oh my god, it's an 11 out of 10, one of the absolute greatest things ever.
I.e. me.
It's complicated. Like I actually never finished the story, and I don't know if I've admitted that in the podcast either yet. I got like 90% through the story of that, and it was just a bit too exhausting for me. I absolutely loved the story up to that point. Arthur. It was all about Arthur. Do you know what I mean?
Cry.
But it was. This is just me personally, and where I view games going in general. Like, I've got a thing about games being too big. I get it. I've not got the patience that I used to, and it just so happens that Red Dead Redemption 2, the scope of it is enormous. Now, I would say that it deals with its enormity in a far better way than Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Like, just blows it away.
It's night and day. Yeah.
We actually, because we made that a very comparison
We
earlier.
well, we did because it came out
at the same time. Yeah,
they came out the 2 weeks apart from each other. So,
but that's just, it kind of almost doesn't matter to me. Like if a game has that scope, I'm probably gonna struggle these days. So I'll be interested to see if games ever actually swing back around and
who knows?
I don't know. It's a that's another discussion, I think, for another day.
Well, I'll finish off with one more underrated game, and I saved this one just for the end here because I think it's quite current. It came out less than a year ago, so I want more people to have eyes on it, and that is Skater XL.
Oh wow!
So
there you go.
And I can defend myself here. I can defend the game here. It is underrated. I think it's obviously it's got its problems. It's a bit of a technical mess. It's probably the sort of jankiest game on my underrated games list, or on any of the from any of this discussion today.
Jank not always a bad thing.
Not always a bad thing, and it's interesting because it felt really, really janky to me at the start, and it was like the menus were really sluggish. They've patched a lot of it. At the end of the day, it's a really small team that's made it. It's very much supported by a small community. I think there's only about 10 people on the team that make the game, and it's the spiritual successor to Skate, the Skate series. Maybe slightly more simulator than Skate, or definitely more simulator than Skate. Yeah. And when I say spiritual successor, it was really because there was no word on Skate, so they kind of took it upon themselves. Now, since then, there has been a Skate 4 announcement, but it's not stopped this game from coming out and sort of receiving support from skateboarders. Like that's the big thing that I think that that people are maybe forgetting about this game, or that maybe don't notice these things. But I follow a lot of skateboarders. I really, we've spoken about that before. I really like skateboarding. I'm not good at it, but I love skateboarding. So my Instagram feed is a lot of skaters, and a lot of them play it. It's really cool.
You're more invested into the culture than I am.
Yeah, and even then, I've got maybe my foot in, you've got your toes in, kind of thing. That's the level here. But it's an interesting game in the fact that it is janky at the end of the day, but it felt more janky gameplay wise to me when I was learning how to play it. And then as soon as it clicks and you start landing tricks, it looks good. It looks good when it's played properly. When you're bailing off a rail every single time you go up to it,
which is the very interesting thing about it. Like that's quite a weird thing to say for games. It looks good when you play it right.
Yeah, it is weird because you would hope that a game would be accessible enough to look good off the so for anyone jumping in, they can learn how to do it. That's why your Tony Hawk games are so accessible. They look good because it's a button prompt, but it's timing and it's physics and it's all that for Skater XL. And if you repeatedly try and grind a rail and bail over and over, your character model freezes and becomes this awful looking like ragdoll kind of thing, and it's almost past the point of being funny and being like, oh, that just doesn't look very good at all. But
yeah,
once you stop bailing as much and landing those tricks, you're like, that looks cool, I'm gonna film that. Now there's no missions, there's no story. That's okay for me because I've not played the Skate story for ages, but I will go in and just mess around and get fun clips and stuff like that. So the fact that that's what that is, I've put about 70 hours into Skater XL, so which is for a game with no objective, I think is speaks wonders to its impact on me. And they've introduced a mod browser, which is next to unheard of on consoles. I remember obviously like Fallout and Skyrim introduced mod browsers. And to get them on PlayStation was a challenge. So the fact that this little team of 10 people and their community was able to make this happen, and maybe every month a new map comes out, and I might not play it for that month, and then the new map comes out and I'll play it for a week and then I'll jump back to it later on, and so there's this sort of steady stream of fun new content to try out. So I would say if you have any interest in skateboarding games, I mean, full price, it's only £35. It's not a full price game. You would have to go in with some expectation of it looking a little bit janky. It doesn't look like a new game, really. There's, it's not a looker. Don't be put off by it. It's hard to play at first, but once you start to get it, I think it is very satisfying to play. So I would recommend that to anyone who hasn't tried it out. Have a little look online. There's a really cool community on like Reddit and YouTube that upload regularly, create maps and share them with people and stuff. So I think it is definitely a better experience on PC with the whole community there. But the fact that they've been able to implement quite a lot of that into the console version, I think is a testament to their passion for this game. And I think it shines through, like, their social media presence and all that. They're proud of this game. And I like that. It's good.
Wow.
There you go.
They should,
my impassioned
they should hire.
speech.
They should hire you. Jesus Christ.
Cut that out and put it on your website. Easy Day Studios.
I almost feel bad about completely and utterly defying everything you've just said. Do we have time?
Yeah, we've got whatever time we want.
No, I don't. No, I don't hate this game. This was a big thing for us when it came out because obviously, skateboarding games was our thing. Once Assassin's Creed died, it sort of became, the thing for us. But for me, it was like, I do just kind of want a bit more out of a skateboarding game. I'm not quite at that level where because it quite literally is a skateboarding physics simulator.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all it is. It's like a
bit of a film editor in there as well.
That's it. And I think that this is potentially, I think it would be a bold move, but I hope they go this route when they're eventually Skate 4, which is being made, comes out. I kind of hope that they lean more towards the simulator side of it, because when you see what a full on, taking it to the max realism skateboarding simulator can
with
be
a AAA budget.
If you were to do that with the AAA, because then you probably would see better bailing animations and you would have stuff built around it and it would probably look really good, whereas Skater XL graphically doesn't really look very good. But I just think I thought at the time, for me, for what it was, £35 was just kind of it seemed too much for me for what it is. And I get the whole side of it in terms of that developer, it's just the 10 of them, they had to make their money and all the rest of it. And just as a punter, it was just, it wasn't quite enough. It's, to me, seeing it and playing it purely for what it was like a £15 experience to me. And if it was that, I probably would have bought it. And I kind of, and when that came out, and obviously you've said it's underrated, and it does fit into that category for you because when it came out, the kind of critical reaction to it being judged as a game product was very lukewarm.
For sure.
And, I align with quite a lot of the points that are kind of made about that game, but I totally respect what it is and what it's trying to do.
But it's also, we're coming up, I mean, it's July, so we're not quite a year, but it's a different game now. It's been tweaked, it's been patched, and there's probably double the amount of map content in there. So I would say if it launched with the amount of content that's in it just now, I think you might have seen a bit more of a positive response if it wasn't as glitchy. The menus were super buggy. I remember that when it first came out, and it would freeze up all the time. And it wasn't just janky in a sort of gameplay department. It was janky in a UI experience as well. But that's all been ironed out. So if that was, now we did just talk about Days Gone launching in a broken state, and so I don't want to be too contradictory with that there. I think,
but this is something near and dear to your heart. It's Days Gone is just another generic video game. Sorry.
So I think no. So bringing it back full circle to Days Gone, but yeah, no, that's I would encourage anyone to try that hasn't, or maybe like Lewis tried it at the launch and was kind of put off by it. I think it is a better game now. There's more content there and good quality content as well. So yeah,
it'll definitely be much more worth it for a lot more people when it drops in price and goes on sale and stuff for what it is now. And but you definitely have to understand that it's it's quite a barren experience. You really need to be into the idea of it being purely for capturing, like literally capturing your lines as a real skateboarder would.
Exactly. If you like the thought of finding a spot in a level, or in real life or whatever, but finding a spot in a map and going, right, I want to land this trick and flip out. Like, say it was just a ledge. I want to kickflip into crooked and, front side shove it out or whatever it is, 180, big spin, whatever. And that's not easy. In a Tony Hawk game, that would be like 3 button presses. But it's an intricate thing. You need to position your body. You steer with the shoulder buttons or with the triggers. So it is definitely, that's where the enjoyment is repeating something over and over until you get that looking clean. Because you could get it, but it might not look good, and you might lose momentum when you land, and then you go, like just like an actual skater would. Like, they wouldn't like a take of their trick where they land it, but they drag their hand across the floor, or they, they land slightly off from being just totally straight so they can roll away from it. And that was definitely what I really enjoyed about it. But if you were checking this game out, you would have to listen to me say that and go, oh, that appeals to me. Because if you go, that sounds awful, Sam, don't play it. I don't recommend it to you if you think that, because it's not just like a free skate, I'm just going to skate around. You can do that once you learn the controls. You absolutely can. But it's definitely set up for posting up at a spot and playing around with the physics until you get something that looks really, really good. So yeah, right. Before we continue to repeat ourselves and go on and on, we will split that there. I do have some hot takes that I did not get to, and we don't need to. But they could honestly be their own episodes, those hot takes, and I think some of them might be. So I might save them for that as well. But yes, cool. That was good. We got through that there. That was
all right. Could be worse, yeah.
Could be worse. I mean, I enjoyed the conversation, but these are games that we've spoken about before, but enjoy. I don't think that came off as too scripted. Leave it in the comments below if you did. But but we've spoken about these things before. But we get passion. You could probably grab that as we were talking about some of those games. So we thank you for your patience. If you were waiting for the episode on Wednesday, I do apologize. It will be up. It'll be up as you listen to this, obviously, because you're listening to it. But yeah, I'm glad we were able to kind of find a solution and quickly turn around, because we didn't want to just we're still new. We could have probably gotten away with not doing an episode this week, but I didn't want 4 episodes in for us to have an episode off, because
no.
If we keep it consistent, then we're going to be able to keep it up longer.
Yeah.
Because so many podcasts fizzle out before they even really start, so that's what we wanted to avoid. But yeah, let's finish up there. You can check us out on the socials. Just type in Not So Casual Gamer, as we're saying. If you're on Apple Podcasts or have access to Apple Podcasts, please leave us a nice review on there, as it does help us out. Anything you'd like to add, Lewis?
No, I think you covered it all there. Thank you, everybody, for listening once again.
Once again, now, goodbye, y'all. Stay safe out there.
Goodbye.